I am very happy to have so many here, so many French professionals and artists, because in your country, in France, from what Vanina taught me, I hope she's not only, I don't know, an easygoing nationalist. I think she has some reasons for that. You have so much tradition in nonfiction filmmaking, and so many, I don't know, so many places and I don't know, festivals. Like for example, Vanina brought me to a festival called Lusas. No, I mean the place is called Lusas.
Yes, yeah, Lusas.
Your microphone, Vanina.
Les états généraux du film documentaire à Lussas.
Yes, and it was very impressive. I don't know, the level of the discussions there, and the way the screenings were organized, you know, like to stay 4 hours for 3 films in a row with no break. It takes a lot of passion and preoccupation, and this is something that I hope we will also achieve in Romania in time. We need time, but yeah. Basically, this is it. We hope to have a good discussion, but to also contribute little by little to I don't know, to a development of exchanges ideas regarding documentary filmmaking. I think this is a very important aspect, and it doesn't happen so much in Romania, and this is an occasion for that. So let's hope that something will come out of it. At least let's have some fun. And Vanina, I would like to pass the microphone to you, because I know that Dominique Cabrera is a filmmaker who is important to you. I don't know, as an artist. She influenced you, and her films touched you. And thank you for being the one who recommended her films to me. Probably otherwise, it would have been it would have taken longer to discover her films. So I want to invite you to start introducing Dominique, and then I will continue.
Oh, I didn't know I had to introduce Dominique. What a task.
Don't worry.
She's lying.
No, I'm not lying.
I mean, she's not lying. She's acting.
No. So, no, my first meeting with Dominique was rather strange, and I never told you, Dominique, because I thought I started with your films. Actually, I'm not going to introduce you like a professor, because I'm not. So I'm going to introduce you like a filmmaker and a spectator. And it was, I saw Demain et encore demain. So it was the first film of you that I have seen. And actually, the first time I saw it, it was very hard for me, extremely hard. I couldn't go in. I could see that it was good in a way. It was not in a way, it was good, but I was really resisting. Everything in me was resisting. It was such a big mirror that I couldn't take it, because it's also talking about depression and everything. And maybe I was in depression, it's for sure. And I couldn't see myself in you, in what you were proposing. But what was so interesting, and I thought a lot about it, and then I saw the film again, and I really loved it. And the more I see it, the more I love it, was that you have succeeded already to make me vibrate, to put me in movement, even if it was in a very antagonistic movement at the beginning. You know, it was like, no, but you put me in movement. And after I have started, I went on in this movement with you, with films that was easier for me in the suburb films, let's say. at this moment of my life also, and of my way as a filmmaker, maybe. And then I came back to Demain et encore demain, et encore demain, and then it was a big, yes, a big festival of emotions. It was, I really, every time I see this film, I have the feeling that d'être à la maison, to be at home. And I know that it's so hard to explain how we make the films. But I wanted you to know this, is that you really have, for me, you are a magician who is succeeding to put us in movement in very different ways, because you do documentary fiction and different kind of documentary, but maybe it's because also you put so much of you, and I'm not talking not only in the films which are so-called journal film, in all of your films. Mm-hmm. So yes, if I can, I don't know if it's a good introduction, but it's my introduction.
Very nice. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and
yes.
Yes, and I just want to explain a little bit, because probably not everybody who joined us knows all these films that Vanina mentioned. Three of them are available in Romania to watch for one more week. And Demain et encore demain, have I pronounced correctly? Journal 1995 is one of them, and Vanina was referring to it, and it is I will try to play the part of the professor.
Yeah. Do it. You are.
So, it's a film diary, actually, and it's part of a series of let's say autobiographical, more directly personal, autoreferential films, documentaries that Dominique Cabrera directed, but she two of the films that are available also in Romania for watching, Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire and La Poste du Courneuve, are part, let's say, of a series that, or I don't know if it is a series, but they are in the appearance very different than of a series that, or than the diaries. I don't know if it is a series, but I think that for Vanina, if I understood correctly, there is a kind of very different relation between these two, let's say, directions, if we may say so, that are we could find in the documentaries of Dominique Cabrera. And to be honest, for me, it's a little bit the same. I mean, there is a certain the kind of first of all, many of the films that there is a link between these films. They are mainly about people who are kept in the peripheries, in the I don't know, in the how do you say it in English? Like in the suburbs, yes. And then there is another thing. Sometimes there are some recurrent locations, from a film to another. So there is also a kind of continuation between some of the films. And also I noticed a kind of tenderness that is very, I don't know, the kind of approach towards the characters that is very, very tender and very whoa. Bless you.
What's going on?
So I don't know, we were thinking of asking you a little bit in the beginning about the way you developed your interest in certain kinds of topics, let's say, and characters, and I don't know if there is a certain reason or reasons for that you could I don't know, point Or
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch very well the question.
the question is was if we could start from the beginning, let's say, about from the reason you developed your interest in these people, first of all, in these kind of topics, and then about the series about you, about that are more directly related to yourself and to your life, your personal life.
Well, how can I begin? You know this very oftenly. Movies are coming from your life. You know what you are, people you are crossing, and when I was making those movies, Une poste à la Courneuve et Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire, I was, in a certain way, in a moment of my life when I wanted to be maybe proud of where I was coming from. And my parents were not, well, my parents were not poor people, but not rich people. And in a kind of way, coming from a kind of suburbs. And I think I was very moved by this in my in the beginning of my filmmaker life. And for Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire, it was just, you know, I went most very oftenly in this city because my brother was working with in a theater company there, and I was working in this place, and I had a kind of vision of a movie I could make by asking people who were living in this place to come back. And it was the beginning. So I wrote a kind of poem, and you know, like a song. And then I was trying to meet people and to begin to find a way to make a movie with this vision. Very oftenly, a location, a place is a kind of a script for me. I find it, I understand this now, but because 2 or 3 years after, I was in a post office, and then I was thinking I could make a movie there. And this is like the place is a kind of script, because in a place suddenly you can go in the past, in the future, in the geography, outside, inside, people coming. It's like the little street in front of me, in front of my house. This is a story. Is my English good enough? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So for suburbs, I think, well, it was my story, you know. And for Tomorrow and Tomorrow, the movie about myself, it was, well, I was making those 2 movies, Une poste à la Courneuve, Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire, and Une poste à la Courneuve. And the movies were showed, and, you know, and suddenly I was thinking, because somebody wrote an article in a newspaper, very elogious with the movie, but you know, this person was kind of, you know, she was writing, those people are very poor, some are ugly, and I was very shocked, very much. And I was thinking, well, how can I, you know, those people, they agree to make to be in the movie, but not to be watched like this. And it was the beginning of thinking I could make maybe a movie about myself to expose myself instead of expose people. Do you understand? And at this moment, you know, there is a lot of reason, you know, to make something. At this moment, this was the beginning of a little video camera, H8, and it was something you can use to make those kind of personal movies, you know, because you have it in your pocket. So I was trying to make experience. And then, I don't know, I had a kind of vision. I could make, it was around October or November. And I was thinking, well, I will begin a movie on the first day of January, like a diary. And then I make it. You know, it's not easy to tell you how, why, and, you know, there is a lot of reasons, but they are mixed in the life.
Yeah.
Maybe you ask another question, I will be able to reply.
Vanina, you want or shall I? Me?
Yes.
Yes. So related to what you said, there is a certain kind of I don't know, of kind of familiarity that seems to happen between you and the characters. For example, in Chronique d'une banlieue, no, most of the film is constructed with characters talking for the camera, so for you and the team probably. So could you tell us a little bit? This is also the film that we screened in a live streaming before this discussion on Facebook. Could you tell us a little bit about the I don't know, the ways you structured the film?
Yes. Well, I was working with the people I was filming around, and to try to build the movie around, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, and find people, find money, find the movie. And I was very fond of a Canadian filmmaker called Pierre Perrault. And I read that Pierre Perrault was writing his discussions with his characters and discuss with them about what will be in the movie. And this was what I was making with the characters of Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire. When, well, I met those people, I had a lot of discuss with them, and, you know, I was not in a way to make a movie like a sociologue, for example, not trying to find people representing groups. I had no money to make the movie. So in a certain way, it was an advantage, because I was making the movie just like a poem in a certain way. And I was trying to meet people who I would love to film, not because they would be representative of something. So, and I had a lot of discussion with them, and I was writing in a little carnet what they are replying. And then I was asking them, when we will make the movie, what would you like to talk about? And with my part, my little words, you know, I was building in a certain way with them what it will be about Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it was not fiction because they were not, you know, apprendre, comment est-ce qu'on dit?
Learning.
Learn.
By heart, absolutely not. But it was we were very much together. They are not catch, you know, they are not surprised. They are catched by their emotion. They are catched by their thinking, but not by the situation. I was trying a lot to make them very comfortable in the situation. And I wanted to give them the keys in a certain way. You know, it's why this is a kind of very mix between documentary and theater in a certain way, because they are improvising on something they knew very well about a moment of their life. And I was working with them to make them very conscious of what they wanted to say. And when we began to make the movie, you know, it was not a answer question. They were speaking in a certain way to themselves, to me, but not really to me, because they had already spoke to me. So they were using me to remember something for them, I think. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it was a plan séquence. Comment est-ce qu'on dit déjà en anglais, plan séquence?
How do you call it in English?
Long shot.
Long shot.
Long shot. So we gave them a microphone and action, you know, and we follow them in walking in their apartments in a kind of long shot. And I think this is why this movie has this strange faces to be like a meditation. The people are, well, do you understand what I was trying to say?
Yes.
So, and to make this movie, I was very happy to work with a very good cinematographer who unfortunately is dead now, but Jacques Pamard, who makes the camera, was able to improvise. Like, for me, it was like a musician of jazz, you know. We were very much together. And then, like the people we were filming, Jacques was playing with them, you know. So, voilà, this movie, this is something like this, you know, a place, describing the place from the beginning to the end, and the people coming in this place and remembering something we were thinking together a lot. And there is something else in this movie, provides suddenly the present. When you are at the top of something like this, of the sorry, a place, a building, describing the place. This is what is going on right now, and this was what was going on right now, and remembering, and you know, something. Well, I think the movie is interesting because of all this. I am trying to describe. The movie catch something about present, the different when you are level of time, like of the past, the present, the real present just right now. And you know, it's like floating into all these times. And well, filmmaking is about time, you know, and by chance, and I was not very conscious of this, because of the location, because of all I was trying to tell you. This movie catch something about the time of all those people who were in this building. Okay.
Yes, and I also, if I'm correct, the editor of this film is with us. No, Dominique Cabrera. I want to say hello. I wanted to ask about the editing of this film, Dominique. I imagine you didn't have a clear structure, narrative structure, since the beginning with everything you wanted, or you did, like with the. How did you construct it? Let's say the narration. The way they follow each other, the episodes, and how much filming did you have in such a let's say a style of filmmaking? You had much more than you have in the final film, or
we had much more, of course, but I don't remember exactly how many hours. Do you remember, Dominique?
Yes, we have to say that we were filming in film and not in video, 16 millimeters.
Yes.
So we don't have so much, you know. I think we could have maybe around 8 or 12 hours.
Not more, no.
8 ou 12, tu vois.
Not more. Not.
I don't think so, but maybe 15. I don't know, but not 50.
Yes, it's true.
And
because we were in 16 millimeters, and we don't have much monies.
No.
Yeah. But do you remember, like, I mean, what were the criterias for ordering the episodes and for choosing the episodes? Because I'm telling you why I'm asking, because for me, almost all the episodes, I mean, a lot of them contain a kind of epiphanies. Like they have, like, it is a little bit in the way that you described. Probably a part of the effect is related to the way different times mix in the same time, the past, the present, and also this. It's also helped by some camera movements, no? Because some of them are very fluid. After they finish talking, the camera goes and stays a little bit on other places. So it's this kind of flux of memory flux. I don't know if it's correct in English.
Yes, very, very.
I was very curious while watching it, or while rewatching it, if these movements, if this, I don't know, interior movements were very important. This rhythm, let's say, or the rhythm was the one that was more important when you chose the ordering, or maybe some other aspects, or maybe it depends. I don't know. Maybe there are more than one reasons.
We wanted to preserve the identity of each person, each personage, and what do you think, Dominique? And each personage had his own personality, and Dominique wanted to respect each person, and each person has the freedom to speak and to remind their own memories. And what do you think, Dominique?
With Jacques, we wanted to find a way, a special way for each person to film, a special way to film them. If you watch a movie again, I'm sorry, you can see that the light is not the same, the kind of movement is not the same. You know, we wanted to find, this is very true, Epiphany. I wanted to find a kind of story and a style to film them in a different way each time. Like, you know, when you walk in the street and you watch little windows with lights, and there is all different stories between the windows, you know, and this was a kind of my vision, to find a way to make a feeling of all these different stories. And I think the movie is poetic because of this, because people are not speaking, you know, they are not giving us something very extraordinary, but what is extraordinary is the feeling of their existence. Something, for me, and I think this is my, you know, my way, the portrait. I don't know this, but I think this is what I like, absolutely. And when I am making a little photo in my street those days, this is what I feel, you know. I love to just to make a photography of somebody. And why? Because I love this. I love to find, you know, to feel somebody. And I think in this movie, there is this, and in the other movie, Une poste à la Courneuve, donc a movie in a post office in suburb, there is, of course, a social question very strong in the movie. But when I watch the movie, I have the feeling what is beautiful in this movie, this is the people. You know, just watch those people. They're so something, you know. And well, this is very simple in a way.
Yeah, but you don't see it so often. But it is, I think, what you were describing about epiphanies and about this trying to depict people on your street and glimpses, let's say, of specific moments that are in a way ordinary, not extraordinary. It is also something very common, let's say, to film diaries. You can see this in many film diaries in general.
Yes.
And I would say that this is a big link between those films that we already discussed and your diary or your diaries. But
Yes,
let's talk more about Domaine, Encore Domaine. You also have there a lot of course, a lot of glimpses, a lot of small gestures that you, but I guess that it's a very different process when it's about you and your very close ones, or is it not?
Yes,
As a filmmaker.
yes, of course, yes. Well, tomorrow this was quite different because it was a kind of you know, making a movie this is always for me, and I think for everybody, but I would love to have your advice. It's to share an experiment, to share something you, in a certain way, you were living, or you are living. What do you think? So Demain et encore demain was very interesting in a certain way for me, because it was very, you know, like a chemical experiment. It was in my house with my son, my lover, very few people. And so it was quite not easy, but in a certain way, I add all the elements, you know, around me. So it's very close to all those movies, because I think I am the same, you know, person trying to make always the same thing in a certain way. But it was easier, you know, I had all this in my autour de moi, around me, and also I was engaged in this experiment. So it was, you know, I had a kind of production. It was Lina, and very, you know, they were not intrusive, but very bienveillant. Je sais pas comment dire ça, bienveillant. Very nice, you know. This is not the word, but you know.
Well-meaning.
Huh?
What?
Well-meaning.
Well-meaning. Okay.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
too close and not too far, and they wanted me to do it, you know, and they didn't want too much, and it was great. It was very important, those people, and you know, there was I didn't knew much diary at this period because there was very few. I had just I was watching a lot of things, not a lot, very few things, and at the end I was very happy to discover Ross McElwee, an American filmmaker, but I was thinking I was alone to make those movies, you know. And the same year, Alain Cavalier was shooting another La Rencontre, and I was talking 1 or 2 times with him by phone, you know, but you know, we were alone, and I had the feeling to make an experiment. I was thinking it was a movie. I had the vision of a movie, but you know, I was very free in a certain way. This is why the movie is beautiful, I think, because it's free. It's a free movie, and I think we have to be very nice to all our free visions, and to try to preserve them and to make movies, because
it's not easy to be free, because the system is not making us being free, not helping us to be free.
Yes, each time we can be free, it's a chance we have to catch, you know. And all those 3 movies were for different reasons quite free, quite outside of the system, because they didn't want us to make it. We were just little, you know, little something in the street. And well, for Tomorrow and Tomorrow, it was I had the support of Lina, but I was like the dancer, or la danseuse.
I don't know how to translate this.
Something very strange. Well, let her do it, you know. And this was great for me. And during 8 or 9, I was very poor, you know. I was living with le chômage.
Unemployment.
Voilà. At the end, in September, I had nothing left. It was horrible. But, you know, I was happy to make this movie. And each day I was filming, trying something, you know. And in this movie, there was a lot of hours, because it was in video, and my feeling was to experiment each day something with cinema in a way, but cinema with what I had around myself. So I was very happy in a kind of an atelier, quoi.
And so it was a film that you, because for the other films in the suburb, you told us that you kind of took a long time with the people, in a way writing, but not writing, but already
very
thinking together in a direction, and then throwing yourself together in that in what you have already created a bit together. And here you had you were throwing yourself without you didn't even write before.
Yes, very true, very true. I had this vision around November, I think October, November, and I was meeting Claude Guizard, who was directing Ina, like, you know, not in the street, but almost. And then I was saying him, oh, well, I would love to make this movie, and da, 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 da. And he said, oh, yes, this is a good idea.
Oh.
But, you know, well, he gave me cameras, and comment dire, they were copying each week what I was filming, and it was very important for me. I was not alone.
Yes.
And he gave me and I was editing each 3 weeks what I was filming.
So super interesting.
Ouais, I was editing tout au long du travail.
All along with the work.
Ouais. And then they gave me somebody to edit the movie after, when I was around 5 years or 5 hours. So it was improvising. It was very different style of work. I was improvising. And I think this is my way. I love to improvise. This is the way I am, you know. Maybe I am not a filmmaker. Maybe I'm just a photographer.
No, lots of filmmakers are improvisers. But what was good is that you had a cadre.
Yes,
very cadre, much.
Very much.
Frame.
Not too. What do you say?
A frame, a container for the film.
Yes.
Yeah.
And within this, like, you had these meetings from time to times at the INA to with yourself and with your rushers, then with the actor, with your psy also, and all this was finally.
And I had Jacques Pamard, who was a cinematographer of Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire, and he was working at INA. And so Jacques was a kind of parrain.
Godfather.
Oui. And he was helping me with the camera, and, you know, by his support. He was supporting me. It was great. It was a very happy year.
Yeah.
When you watch the movie, of course, you think it's about depression. And in a certain way it is, but in another way, when you watch the images, I see somebody very happy to film, to be in a movie, film the flower face, you know, to film. So it's a movie very happy in a certain way.
It's a great way of living living through a depression.
Yes.
Really?
Well, yes, but well, what I can say about this, years after, I understood something. Well, maybe I am wrong, but, you know, I can, you know, how can I say this? When I am finding something important for me, and I am not the only one, this is very oftenly a moment where I am very depressed. So after all these years, I was thinking, I was not making a movie about a depression. I was making a movie, and this is why I was so depressed.
Oh.
So who knows, you know, but I think it could be quite true, unfortunately. You know, because when you are finding something very important, in a certain way, you are in danger. You are in the outside, le vide.
Emptiness.
The emptiness. And the emptiness, this is the subject of Chronique d'une banlieue ordinaire. And when I was making Tomorrow and Tomorrow, I was absolutely in emptiness, and I wanted to be improvising by filming my life, not preparing. You know, it was what I was thinking, not preparing. So you film what is going on. This is wonderful, but it's emptiness. So I was very afraid, I think now, and I was making something. It was beautiful, and then I was depressed, and I was I don't know, afraid, or I was thinking I had to pay to be so happy, or who knows, you know. I am giving you all this, maybe somebody will sing something about this. This is so, you know.
Yeah, this is very interesting period from a point of view. There is a little coincidence here, because Rose McElwee was one of our special guests this year for the festival, and we were organizing a retrospective, and he will also be with us online during the summer.
July, I will tell you, on the 3rd of July.
I will come.
So this is, yeah, it would be great to have you together with him. Yeah. But also I wanted to say something about, you know, I teach in the film school in Bucharest, and of course they cannot do their projects as they were, the students, as they were supposed to. So suddenly all of them have to do film diaries for the exams. And I found it very, I don't know, very interesting, the fact that suddenly film diary became like this type of cinema that used to be not, you know, like in the margins, like a little marginalized, and suddenly there is such a big interest, temporary interest for it. So some of the students, I'm sure they will be very interested about this discussion also, because it's, for some of them, it's the first time that they interact with the idea of film diary. But also, and after this, I would like to also open the discussion to our guests and to introduce them a little bit, to share some ideas. For me, I watched a lot of film diaries. I was very interested in them. I actually wrote my PhD on film diary and Jonas Meka. So watching your film was very particular experience for me, because yes, I was used to, I actually found your other films more related to film diaries because of the way of these epiphanies that keep appearing in your interaction with the characters. And in this film, it was very moving for me, the fact that I thought that you were trying to, or that, you know, you in the film seemed to try to get to these epiphanies, but not, it was not in the same way. It was not so I don't know, it was like this trying to find epiphanies, to find it was like a depiction for me of trying to find some beauty outside, in the flowers, in the faces of the people, and it was not, you know, it was not so for me, it was not, it didn't seem to be like a completely fulfilling experience. You didn't found it totally, but it was very, you know, it seemed like it still was touching and moving, this trying. And this is something that in a lot of, you know, a lot of film diaries elude, because they also try to find these epiphanies, or there is I'm sure there is a process in which they get to them, but you don't see the process usually. You see directly the epiphanies. And I don't know, for me, it was something very particular about your diary, also from this point of view, let's say.
True. Yes, very true.
but I would also like to open the discussion.
Yes. I'm sorry.
And-
We were speaking a lot, and
Yeah, I would like to introduce some guests that we invited for today, and just briefly to present them. I will start with Mihaela Mihailov. Hello, Mihaela. Thank you for being with us. Mihaela is so we invited basically 6 very different personalities, but also professionals. They are not all directors or activists, etc. But we thought that in their I don't know, in their work, there were some things that we found to be some preoccupations that we intuitively thought that might be related to your films, to your preoccupations, and we were thinking of trying to provoke this contact between you and them, all of them being originally from Romania. So Mihaela is a playwright. She wrote a lot of plays, and she coordinates an independent theater in Bucharest. Daniela Groza she's a photographer. She has this beautiful project, Be Kind for Real, and she lives in New York, where she's also a driver, a taxi driver. No, taxi, yeah, which is very cool. Yeah. Crina Marina Mureșanu she's also an activist, and she was supposed to have an event during our festival, an exhibition containing photos and objects from different Roma families from the past. Am I correct, Crina? I didn't see. I didn't, because it was not finally organized. I only know it from descriptions and from photos. So please correct me if.
Yeah, it's perfect. You will have the chance to have the exhibition in front of you. I'm sure of that.
Yes.
It's an online museum. Yes.
And yes, and Christina Hanesh. Christina she's a young filmmaker. She just premiered this year her first feature documentary that was made together with two other filmmakers, one from Italy, one from India. And at some point in her life, in her career, she also filmed a documentary in which she was. It was not necessarily an autobiography, no. It was more like a depiction of your relation with the main character, no, Christina?
Yeah, you could. I don't know. I would say it was an encounter that I filmed. That I had. Yeah.
It was the process. What was a little bit similar to what Dominique described about the way she worked with the characters, with the people from Chronique d'une banlieue, or it was not at all prepared? Or
no, it was not at all. It was completely spontaneous, filming it in the making. So the relationship was filmed as it was developing.
Okay. Radu Chornichuk is also a young filmmaker, but are you still here, Radu?
I'm here, but I'm not so young, you know.
No, but let me. Okay, how old are you? 20 what? 27. You're young. It's okay.
Yeah.
So Radu also is related to this edition of our festival because his first feature documentary was supposed to be in the opening film. The English title is
Acasă, my home.
So it's in Romanian, Acasă, which means home in Romanian. So Acasă, my home, and this is also a little somehow related to Dominique's films in a way, because you also stayed a lot. No, you with the characters. The characters are a family. That tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so it's a film about a family that lived off grid in the wilderness for 20 years until they had to move and adapt to a life in the city. So we've been following them for 4 years, and Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of interesting things that you said, Dominique, about your way of making films, and I truly appreciate films from the periphery, from the suburbs, made by people that had something to do with that environment, because that feeling of familiarity and that, but also the feeling of being curious about those familiar environment was truly special for me. And this is something that I'm always taking in consideration when researching and filming and following characters. So it's been a joy to listen to you guys. So
yeah, but it's not. It didn't finish.
Yeah,
we will invite you very soon to interact with Dominique. But I also want to introduce Victor Morozov, who is also very young, and he's a film critic. He lives in you. You don't live in France. I'm a little bit confused, but you studied in France,
for
no?
the moment.
Ah, for the moment.
Yeah, in Dublin.
But he's very passionate about French cinema and about French about non-fiction films. I know you are following a lot, so we wanted to also have you here to have also a perspective from somebody who probably watches cinema from integrating what you see in many boxes from different perspectives. So I would like to invite you for a starter to tell us, how did you find Dominique's films, each of you? I mean, from what perspective were they intriguing or interesting or relevant for you? Because I'm sure for each of you were relevant from very different perspectives. Mihaela, shall we start from in the order that I introduced you?
Yes, okay. So I'm very glad to be here. I will tell you that I connected with the films in different ways. For instance, with the films talking about banlieue and suburbs, I connected also because I worked in different places in Romania where a lot of poor people live, and they face with different problems, from living near garbage dumps, near in very poor districts, and trying to face everyday life. So I connected with the landscape you created. And I'm also involved in a project in a retirement home in Bucharest, and we have been doing there for 10 years shows with old people. I don't know, from 70 to 100 years, and they are performing in the shows. And we have done a lot of documentation there. So from this point of view, I very deeply connected with your research in documenting all these territories, and I found very interesting the way, as you said, the way that the location becomes a script and that the place becomes a narrative. And I found very interesting the way that the places that people live can become narratives and can become not only histories but also stories. I liked a lot the way you created the connection with the memory in the Chronique d'une banlieue. The fact that all these people come to these places and they try to fill in empty spaces, and I really like the fact that memory becomes a very vivid character, and you see through their memories, you see their whole lives, and their happy or their moments when they felt alone or they didn't find a place for themselves. And I like the way you created this these landscapes of memories, which become very, very vivid. But of course, I have to tell you that I deeply connected with Demain et encore demain. It was very, in the beginning, I refused the movie in a way, because I saw it when Andrei sent me the movies. I began watching Demain et encore demain very late in the night, with my child sleeping next to me, and I found it like very, very tough, and I stopped watching it. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning, I began watching it, and I think it was also interesting that I felt like watching it till the end. And I would say that I discovered there are very rare films that have how to say, a visceral quality, because for me it was a brutal film, but also a very tender film. And even if in the beginning it was a film about depression, then I discovered it's a film about happiness, and it's a film about longing for happiness, and about this search for discovering and recovering and trying to have your moments of intimacy and trying to have a connection to the others. And it deeply moved me, this how to say, this brave, it's a very brave movie for me. It's like I just wrote after I saw it that it's like how to say, it's like a courageous bridge into the wall of loneliness. And at the end, it's very important that at the end you don't have this very depressive feeling, but I felt very liberated, and more than this, I felt very empowered. And I think this was really amazing, that in a movie which in a way talks a lot about deep feelings and connections with your sons, and this, how to say, feeling that sometimes you are not a good mother, that maybe the father is better than you, maybe you are not there for him, maybe you would like to offer him more, how to say, more happier holidays. This very courageous and brave relation that you created, even if it's sometimes very depressive, for me it was very, very empowered. And it really gave me a feeling of liberation, and the need to maybe to go deeper into this kind of autobiography research, because of course I'm more familiar with theater, but I also know about film because I also follow this. But in theater, for instance, we don't have a lot of performances or many performances trying to really go deep into this autobiography field, which I think it's sometimes is a pity, because you can discover a lot of things. And I also admired the fact that it is an intimate film, but it is a very political one, because it talks a lot about the political context. It talks about the hope of the left, because we are all in a way thinking that there will be that left that will change things. And I also like the fact that you connected intimacy and you connected personal with the political, and I think it's very nice. And I also noted something that I tried to follow the words that you were writing, and sometimes I succeeded, sometimes I didn't. And I like the fact that you connected in a way the stability of the words, because the word in a way is there and it's a stable material, with this instability of feelings and this unstable landscape that you make us follow in a way. And I like the way that the words become also a very fluid material that you are working with. I will stop, but I will come back.
Dominique, is it?
What I can say? This is very moving, you know, to watch you, Mihaela, with your young face, and your little child. You know, it's like I was watching me when I years ago. So thank you so much for all these words. The word vivid, I was catched by this word. I think this is what I want to do, to catch something vivid, visceral, and I don't know how to make it. And sometimes there is a movie and suddenly there is a street to catch the life. But when you don't find the way, this is very, very painful. And in those movies you were programming in the Cineclub, those 3 movies, in a certain way, by chance, I had a way to catch something live, vivid, with your word, in a certain place or in a certain year. And well, it was wonderful. But it's very difficult as a filmmaker to find this door or this script or this occasion, or you understand? And you are trying, well, this could be, and suddenly you find it. And in a certain way, it's a chance, because it's like, when you, I think maybe painters have the same problem. Of course, you can paint anything, but sometimes you find a model, something which is more connected to your deeply profound problem or your deeply question of you. And the work is to find this model, this something, this story, this, I'm trying to find a word to describe it. But this is, for me, the most difficult problem. Find the door, find the...
Yeah.
So thank you so much for all your words. I don't know what I can reply. It was very interesting, because I had the feeling you were with me watching these movies. And what can I say? Cinema is very strange thing. Of course, you know this, because the feeling, the dreams, a person coming inside us. And of course, sometimes we can love it, but sometimes, because it's so intimate, it's disgusting. You can't, no, not this person. I don't want, I can't, I dislike it. And this is not a judgment. It's, like love, you can't love everybody. And there is something very special, especially in diaries, because it's so intimate, and also in terms of style, it's more, documentaries are very often prototype. Do you understand this word in English?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Documentaries are very often prototype, but diaries are prototype, absolutely, because this is like, the shape of somebody. So it's the movie. I mean, the form of a movie. If you watch the movies, they are so different. you know, and they are different because I think the filmmakers are trying to make an autoportrait in a certain way in the form of the movie. You can feel them very deeply, what they like, what they don't like, the way they are in the world. Do you understand? So you can be very close to them. And of course, I am very happy. Some people are close to me, but I can understand they don't want absolutely not to be so close with me because it's like, you know, my body, something like this. Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This is, when you say visceral, I think this was absolutely right. And this is what maybe I was, you know, of course, listening you from, well, now I am trying to make new movies. And what is difficult for me, this is this, visceral. I think I have the feeling a movie is right when it is visceral. So I don't find a way to be visceral each time. And I don't know how to do it. You know, I try to find something. And I think there is a lot of way to make movies. And this is not a choice, you know. I don't know why I had this necessity, but when some of my movies or some part of the movies are not visceral, I am very unhappy. Well,
Good.
I have to find a way.
So I would like to also address Daniela. I think to the same question. If at what levels were Dominique's films relevant for you? If they were relevant for you, or intriguing or interesting, I'm really curious.
Oh, wait. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna start with the first two, the shorter films, the more observational documentaries, and it made me think of a post office in Romania that I go to. That's pretty far from where I stay, usually in Bucharest, and I go there specifically to watch the women at work. And I was wondering, and I don't know if this is a generational divide, but I was wondering if anyone that goes to that post office sees it as a story. I go there for the story. It can be really annoying to sit for maybe sometimes even an hour to get your packages in order and get them prepared by the post office workers. So I loved watching both of them, the banlieue, Chronique d'une banlieue, and the post office. And I don't know if that kind of observational, I don't have a documentary film background or a film background for that matter. So I don't know if that kind of observational work still works today. So I actually have more questions than sort of like a analysis of the films. I don't know if those work, and if people, even if they're not involved in film, if they still experience the world in that way. Is it this retirement sort of in the imaginary? For me, I know it comes from a difficult family, so I always look for stories because it makes life more interesting, and life is a movie to me. I'm not going to go any deeper into that, but I wanted to talk about the self-portrait that you did through Demain. What is it?
Demain et encore demain.
Demain
My
encore
French
demain.
is not good either.
Yes. So from what I understand, you had no point of reference. There were no other filmmakers that had done that before and that made you interested in filming your own story, right?
No, I was more inspired by writers.
Okay.
Virginia Woolf, Colette, a lot of women were writing their diaries, you know. So I was thinking to writers, and also I was filming Rembrandt, the painter, who was painting himself during his life, So I was thinking about this, and I knew there was Jonas Mekas, but I, you know, I don't know anything. You know, in those times, there was a very... C'était, ça se faisait pas, enfin.
Did you feel like you were doing something different and helpful for other women who may have been in your position, but didn't have the means to speak about these things, like depression and having a child and being alone with a child for...
Well, I was very inspired by a Japanese poetess. I don't remember her name, unfortunately. She was writing little poem about her life, and epiphany, like Andrei said us. And well, I was thinking, well, I am making a movie about, well, when I was making this movie, I was trying to make something very personal and kind general.
Universal.
Yes. And I was thinking, oh, well, I am making a movie. I was thinking I could die, you know. I was very deeply inside the work. And I was thinking maybe I will die after all this. And this movie will be like the Japanese poetess, a movie with about the life of a young woman with a child at the end of the 20th centuries. And well, that's in a suburb, and that's all. This is what I wanted to be linked to, the story of women. Do you understand? Of women trying to exist in an artistic form. I don't find the word.
So you were aware of a larger framework that you were working in. It wasn't just a work for yourself. I mean, every diary is written.
No. I had a feeling of a form, you know, a kind of récit, a story, a movement. No, I wanted to make something, to make a form, something. So to let something. And now I think I remember the word vivid, Michaela found, and I think this is so true. I think this is also, I wanted to make a movie about my little son, who was 10 years old, and you know, catch something of the life you are living, because it will disappear. This is, I think, a lot of filmmakers are trying are making movies because of this. Don't you think so?
Yeah,
true.
Trying to catch something because this is disappearing.
I mean, it also feels, in a way, it feels like a way to control something in your life, since everything else felt a little bit blown up.
Yes, very true. Very true. And when I was editing, you know, I was saying each 3 weeks I was editing what I was choosing, and you know, and now at this moment I was conscious of what I was living, and you know, it was a way to be able to live in a certain way, to just to control, to understand. Maybe it's too much to say understand, but to catch something, you know, because it's so difficult. It was a way to live, and this is very difficult, because if you think the movies you make is good only if you are so deeply inside, not easy to find what movie you have to do.
I thought about your son while watching the movie, and so I went in and out of identifying with you and also with your son, because I came from a family where my mother was a single mother. And so it took me about 8 hours to watch an 1.5-hour documentary. I kept on stopping it and being really angry. And I would tell my girlfriend, oh God, I can't take this anymore. This is too much. And then I would go eat and then come back to the movie. And I would watch it maybe in increments of 10, 15 minutes. And then I would rewind a little bit just to get in the mood again, because it's hard to see this kind of movie. However, it's also extremely important. And I think mostly in Romania, and actually, Andrea, I have to ask you about this. I don't know how many, if any, documentaries of this type exist in Romania, done by Romanian filmmakers.
I don't know. But there is a lot of movies like this over the world.
Yes.
But in
Romania, Alec, Mona, do you know something similar? I don't know. I know some, I don't know, Ion Grigorescu's films, but they are not diaries per se. They are more like, I don't know, auto-referential in a way. I think Christina's film was not the same, but it was in this more personal approach. It was not, it was about her relation with somebody in a way, about her encounter, as she said. But I don't know. Do you know something similar to this? I don't know.
No.
There are a few shorts from younger filmmakers like Andra Tarara, but for the most part, I think Romanian documentary filmmakers are terrified of going inside themselves. Like, we tend to just kind of, do anything in our power not to go inside, to go outside. I like. Do you have any? Do you know any docs that would? We definitely don't have a tradition of it. We might have some exceptions.
Nothing comes to mind now, but I don't know.
So Mona, you mentioned there are some. I'm really curious because I know we have a tradition of shame in Romania. We're a little bit delayed from the Western world, and my practice, my project, Be Kind for Real, and my presence on social media, because I'm of a younger generation, not so young, but I'm 37. I figured out that social media is the best way to sort of put my life on display in a way that you've done with your documentary. It was the easiest vehicle for me without having to film myself. And on my Instagram, the title under my name is Life Performance, because I really wanted to understand what kindness is. It's just my journey. What is kindness? Does it matter? How do I show it? Do I talk about it or I just show it? And people sort of gather what that means. And the first time I spoke about sexual abuse that's happened to me as a child, I was on stage, and a lot of people that knew me didn't know about that part of my story. And I was on stage 4 years ago, and I could hear gasping in the room. I don't remember, I think there were about 180 people. And there was gasping, and it was just a lot of hugging at the end of me being on stage. And it made me so sad because I hadn't been in Romania for many years, and I realized, so this happened in Romania, when I spoke about sexual abuse, and I thought it's so important to hear ourselves talk about these things, and we don't have that tradition. I don't even know if in France now there is a tradition, but there is an openness that you brought to the stage, to the screen in '95, and I wish we could harness that, what you did in the documentary, through even One World Romania, to harness this courage or whatever it is. I don't know if it's courage. For you, it is what it is, as it is for me. I didn't feel like I was courageous. I just had to get it out so I don't dive into depression. And it did save me. So I wanted to ask you if you felt some kind of permanent healing of some wounds after making that and after receiving feedback on the documentary.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question. Permanent?
Healing.
La guérison.
Voilà.
Did you?
Yeah, not directly,
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
For example, do you still think that thinking about happiness is important?
I think it's not the movie, you know, it's the life. My life changed a lot after this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I made some other movies, feature films. I had a very different life after this movie. You know, maybe it's a reply. I didn't. I never thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very oftenly people are writing diaries in some crisis moments.
Mm-hmm.
So I was making a diary in a crisis moment, maybe when I was trying to find a new life, you know, to become a filmmaker in a certain way. When somebody spoke about empowerment, and I think this is very true. This movie this is a movie of somebody at the end finding a kind of empowerment on our life and on something as writing a movie. But I didn't knew I was making this, but this is absolutely true. I was making this around a lot of, you know, very just when I was in the middle of the editing, I was shooting my first feature film, and I finished it, and then I come back to the editing of the diary. So, you know, it was something very strong. So in a certain way, yes, I can say yes. I didn't knew this, but it was a kind of amélioration, enfin, en tout cas.
But there's even a word in English that's specific to that kind of writing in a moment of crisis. That's therapeutic, right? And it's called journaling, actually. In English, there's a dedicated word for therapeutic writing, for processing, basically, purposes.
But in a way, the way I see journaling, which I've done and I stopped doing, I did it in a moment of crisis, but it's a little bit aestheticized because you have slightly more time to write down your feelings and emotions and process and sort of construct a story around your pain. And sure, when you did edit your documentary, but the filming of it is still raw. So it's raw vulnerability. And I'm really interested in vulnerability. And Mona, maybe this is a question for you too. Like, why do we have the shame in Romania about displaying our stories? Is it, I don't know. I don't have an answer for it. I guess that maybe all over the world there's a shame when some of us are ready to do it.
But I don't think this is something specific only to Romania or only to our part of the world. This is.
Yeah. I revised. It's not.
Maybe it's not shame. Maybe it's some sort of fear of going inside too much and exposing yourself and risking to appear vulnerable. Maybe it's about that.
Even though what's interesting is even though one sometimes does become vulnerable, like how we all became vulnerable in front of Dominique's vulnerability, we all agree that we need that more in our lives, and we feel something, and even if it makes us uncomfortable, we feel like we have a mother in the person who became vulnerable, or a sister or brother, or we're not alone. And maybe this is even more important now during quarantine.
It's also we don't have the vocabulary in Romania, and I'm not talking about the words, but
Sure.
you know, there is no intellectual structure for doing this, and that's true of a lot of the arts. Maybe there's a little bit in visual arts that's closer to that. But it's also done in ways that are much more opaque and less accessible and seen as sort of more marginal, actually, because they're not, they're indirect in some ways. I think we're lacking sort of the intellectual structure for it, the vocabulary, the cultural, actually, the culture of self-expression and rendering yourself vulnerable. And I don't know whether that comes from having like too much precarity outside, that, you know, having precarity inside yourself is difficult to handle, or where that is. I don't know. I don't know whether Alec or Mihaela have something to say, especially Mihaela, because she works in theater, and that's like an entirely different medium that does and doesn't actually deal with vulnerability.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's very difficult, and as Radu said, it's a lot about exposure and the limits of exposure and how you see it. And I guess it's also about this emotional education that lacks a lot, and about the fact that kids are not raised in a way to express their feelings, and they are more how to say taught to put limits. And I guess this becomes very, very problematic, because if you raise with these limits in your heart, in your mind, if you are always more concerned about what people would think about your exposure, you will be in a way you will have a trauma in relating to this, to your own emotions, and to this vulnerable territory of exposing yourself. I think it's a lot about how we are raised, and about a certain fear. For instance, even if I come for my parents are quite open. In a way, it was a fear of touching very vulnerable issues, even if they are like very eager to talk about things. This deep emphasis on very vulnerable issues lacked. And I think it lacks in a lot of families, it lacks in education. And in a way, it's very difficult when you are brought like this. It's very difficult to recuperate all this emotional, how to say, milieu. Because that it is. It's an emotional milieu, and it's very rich, but it's very rare in the same time. And it's difficult to say at 20, be open if you have all these things in you. I don't know.
Yeah, can I also invite Christina in this discussion, because yes, she didn't make a film diary, Christina Hanesh, but
yeah.
I don't know, for me, it's one of the films that I've seen that are close to, I don't know, to exposing yourself in some vulnerability, let's say, as a filmmaker. In this film, you depict, you present the relationship that gets stronger and stronger with, maybe you describe it a little bit, for maybe not everybody saw it. It's about your relation with a little older guy that you met in Portugal, no, while you were studying there, and he, during the filming, he seems to become in love with you, no? So the film depicts this in a way. So what were your, I don't know, your models, because you are Romanian, of course you did this film outside in another country, so maybe you felt freer.
That didn't stop me.
You felt in another tradition, cultural tradition. But what do you think about this? About did you perceive it like this, like you were exposing, or I don't know, like you were fighting with some kind of cultural taboos, or not necessarily?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, it was possible because I was in Lisbon, so I was Romanian somewhere else. Yeah, well, the film, yeah, was a school exercise, actually, while I was a documentary cinema student in Lisbon. And yeah, the film films this relationship with a man that is 70 years old, that I suddenly met at one point. And there was a strong attraction between us, but of different types. And at the beginning, I set off to make a portrait of this man that was living in a small apartment, in a room, actually, in a shared apartment with other men, all in their 70s and 80s. They were all running away from something, and he was locked in his room for the past 2-3 years, rarely going out. So I was very drawn by this, yeah, by this choice that he made. And I really wanted to capture his solitude, because he would spend his nights smoking in front of the window that was in a very busy neighborhood of Lisbon. And actually, yeah, talking about the marginals and the suburbs, in Lisbon, it was the other way around. The center was the place of the immigrants, of the renegades of the society, let's say. And he would have, from his room, you would have a window into that world. And while I was trying to portray him, he kind of pulled me into the film, because he was interacting very much with me, and because yeah, we had a strong attraction. So I eventually ended up in the film. At the beginning, it was just by voice, and then slowly I felt that I needed to cross this boundary that I was having in my mind and go with him in front of the camera. And it was, of course, I mean, I was 23 years old, and he was 70 years old. It was a completely unknown situation of being, as a young girl, you know, very drawn by this energy of this man that was also full of poetry, and putting myself in this situation of mainly spending the nights in his room with him. So of course, it took an unexpected turn. I didn't plan to do that. It was, of course, very hard in the editing to watch the footage and to see maybe some things of myself that I wasn't very comfortable with, like that I acknowledged I had, but I would always maybe, yeah, put aside. So yeah, it really, yeah, and I was then, of course, very terrified to show the film, which is another, yeah, part of it. And that's why, yeah, I would come back to Dominique's film, again, The Diary, because there were some moments in which, in the voiceover, you reflected on the fact that after the scene with your mother, you said that, yeah, it's good, like pointing the camera at her enabled me to have this courage to discuss finally something that has been so hard for me to address. And the same it goes also with the scene with the boy, with your son. And it seemed like, yeah, this power that the camera has to, yeah, just enable you to find that strength to finally do it and to finally address these issues that you wouldn't otherwise. And it's not because you then know somebody would be watching it. It's more because cinema has this kind of strength, I guess. And the diary was, for me, I embraced it fully from the beginning, and it was exactly what I needed in that point, as in yesterday when I watched it, because it very much resonated with this period that we have been living, because as we saw these waves of the, let's say, the cartography of your feelings, depression is also very much counterbalanced by these moments of highness, when you explode into something very uplifting, and then you grabbed the camera and you went on the street and you filmed going out of the door, and that was completely expressed exactly that feeling that you have in depression, that is much more powerful than any other, because you were longing for it from the depths of the sorrow. So
Well, I was wondering why camera has this power, and I think maybe I could say something, because a camera or cinema, this is the others, the world. You are not alone with somebody. There is un tiers, somebody else. Do you understand what I'm trying to? There is a world, There is not. You are not just stick to somebody or to yourself. There is the promise, the feeling, the hoping of the world, of the future, before, after our death. Something like the art, This is what I feel. Another world, the world and another world. This is what I feel. I was very much wondering why, very often wondering why should I have to do this? Because this is not easy, Of course, people like and don't like you are making such movies. Why to do this? Why do I have to do this? And I think this is to find people like you guys and girls, people understanding what you are, who you are, with your vulnerability, with your strengths, with all this. And suddenly you are not alone, because you were able to cross all this to make a form, to make something, not only to express yourself, but to make something that could maybe cross the years and the time and meet people. Because this is a style, this is a writing, there is a style of writing, there is something able to be in a certain way éternel. this is what we are trained to do. Don't you think so?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, we are trying to fight death in a way, and yeah,
this is great to try. Who knows? Who success? Never mind. We try.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kirina.
An anti-suicide.
Sorry.
No.
It's the opposite of suicide, right? You start...
Opposite of suicide. Yes, absolutely. And absolutely. And I think this is why when you are making such movies, you are so close to suicide, because it's very close. Yes.
Yeah, and I would, sorry, Andre, I would just point to one scene from the diary that was also extremely touching, was the one where you were in the chairlift with your son and you were seeing death and he was seeing life. Yeah, I think that encompassed it all.
Oui, mais c'est tellement... Mais là, ça c'est... Oh, I'm sorry, I speak French. This is so strange, you know. Maybe as filmmakers, you could reply to me how life take sometimes, very oftenly, a dramatic face. You know, I was in this place, and this was like alors là, c'était comme une matérialisation de nos pensées. La situation était comme une matérialisation de nos pensées.
The situation was like a materialization of your thoughts. I don't know.
I mean, that's why I think all films
It was
are...
very strange. I have each day you are walking in the street and suddenly you see something, you are with, this thing is what you are thinking. I'm sorry, maybe you are thinking I'm quite full, but don't you feel this?
No, it's an objective correlative, right? It's an objective with T.S. Eliot's objective correlative. T.S. Eliot's objective correlative.
Oui. I have the feeling, j'ai l'impression qu'il y a très souvent comme des sortes de matérialisation de mes pensées, de mes sentiments dans ce qui est autour, quoi. Les couleurs, les lumières.
Very often I have the feeling that there are some my thoughts, what everything that is around me, in the colors, in the sounds, in the light.
I don't want to afraid you.
No. I want to also invite Kirina to share her thoughts. Something very strange with the sound. No, somebody has the microphone. I don't know. Now it's okay. So Kirina, what was your experience while watching the films, and what interested you in them, if it happened to interest you?
During the last hour, I had the feeling that it was so true, all the things that I felt when I saw the documentary. And I have to admit, Dominique, that for this week you were my friend in an online way, because it was like a direct meeting of social, cultural, political heritage. Because even if it's diary, I had the feeling that similar with you, and after I saw your presentation, I understood that I have also the experience of the process that you somehow had, and you already mentioned it. What I mean is that I would underline somehow what I feeling was the same. What was the same? It is this perspective of personal and become a collective memory, because because what you have there, it was also about something common between people. It was also, I was also in my project Urban Roma, about Roma experience, in special of Roma women experience in communist period from Bucharest. It was also the intersectionality of issue. I saw a lot of things that came in my mind, and even, for example, I described my project after some years. I understood that it was from the beginning a feminist project, and I didn't know that. But also I had that feeling also with your materials, and I would like to share one thing that came in my mind right now. It was the maturity of the children, and the fact that you had also the position and the voice of the children, which is very important when you expose really the people. And you, when we start, you had this mention that you expose the people, and because of that you had somehow change the way you make your documentary. So it was so personal, and I like it so much in your mention today. But I also, this was one thing, it was the process. I felt that we have a common process, but somehow it was something common. But in the same time, I have to admit that what I felt, it was an innovative example of how you use your privilege to make a political point. And I have to admit that this, I like it also in the documentaries, and I hope I will have the chance to chat with you for the experiences that can be common. Thank you.
I think something happened and Dominique left because of the connection. I think there was a problem with the connection. So maybe we wait for her to come back.
Oh yeah.
It's very funny when you lose your main guest to technology. Just grabbed by technology.
And we can sing a little song, you know.
Well, you first.
Meanwhile,
Alexandra,
no.
You first,
I don't want to.
Oh, you changed location, Alexandra.
Yes.
Can you find a song in French that we could sing along?
Frère Jacques. I don't know. But you know, Vanina did the diary film.
What?
No? Yeah, it's true.
Sort of a diary film. Après silence.
It's true, correct. I didn't
It's
think
a diary film. Well, we can assimilate you in the Romanian culture already.
Yes.
But otherwise, I think...
You may not want to.
Related to this, you know, I was looking what the translation for the word pudic is in English, and it's bashful, you know. And I think Romanian culture is bashful, you know. Romanian society is bashful. And but on the other hand, it's not only Romanian. I think this subjectivity in film, it's a rather recent thing, you know. In documentary, the fact that this, you know, like Renov calls it, the subject of the documentary is the subject, which is the me, you know. And this is not so old. I mean, maybe it's 30 years or something, which is nothing. And for a genre like documentary, which is meant to be, you know, about actual things and actuality, you know, and that the others, films about the me are, you know, less obvious, and this is why it took a while to, you know.
Dominique,
Now we're in, with the internet and everything. We're in a completely different phase now. The me is all over as a subject.
It's true. So Dominique, welcome back. She came back.
And so it's Alexandru was talking about Romania. Dominique.
So Dominique, while you were away, we almost sang a French song, and we realized that Vanina actually made a film that is very close to Diary, you know, Après le silence, and we forgot about her because she's also Romanian.
Yes,
not only French.
Hello.
Hello.
No, but it's not really totally a documentary.
A diary.
A diary. It's with my Romanian family.
Yeah.
So if you consider
it's a personal film.
Romanian.
It's a personal film.
It's a personal film. Next film will be more super personal.
More personal, yeah.
But it will be in France. Sorry, my first French film.
Okay, so Victor Morozov, your turn.
Yeah. So first, thanks for having me here, and yeah, I watched all the three films, and a lot has been said about the diary film. So I thought maybe we could say some words about the other, and just to pick up on what Andrei and Vanina said. I mean, for me, there was another connection between these two, so to speak, directions, which I'm not sure how fair it is to say this, because I don't have a very global image of your filmography, but anyway, I think that diaries are by definition concerned with memory, and I think that Chronique du Mal Ordinaire is also a film which, and it has been said, which touches on memory, and it was very, very powerful and very touching for me, because for some time, more than my weekly, let's say, film creating and everything, I've been interested, and I mean, because I lived in France for a while, I've been interested in learning more and more about this particular area, which is the suburb, especially in France. And I realized when talking with other people, and even with directors who made investigations and films in the banlieue, that it's a very, very interesting climate there, because it's a place, and it's a which deals a lot with a certain collective regime of existence, so to speak. Ça passe par une manière d'habiter, comme on dit. And seeing this, and because it's crucial, in my opinion, and of course I'm not alone, but it's crucial that these kind of spaces, which are like the apartment blocks, they don't just erase themselves. I mean, it's important. It's something that cinema can do, and that documentary can do, to keep this memory intact, if possible. Because I think it's alarming, and more cities are changing as we speak, and we are losing layers of history. Maybe sometimes it's for the better. Maybe the people who lived in the HLM, maybe later they found a bigger or a more comfortable house. So no doubt about it. But in the same time, it's somehow problematic to lose all this history, which goes already somehow very far in time. I mean, there are decades from the 60s onwards, And I think, Andre, you were right when you said that as a film critic you somehow try to patch and complete the picture. And there's this very wonderful film by Maurice Pialat, which is called L'amour existe, which is very poetical and in the same time a full of rage, a film full of rage. It's done in the 60s, 1960, when the banlieue was something. And for example, here we are 3 decades later with your film, and now 3 decades later after your film, we can see how things evolved in time. And it was interesting because this is an area, I think, in France where you can invent some sort of collective, not only collective experiences of living in a place, but also collective solidarity. And it's important that the cinema allows for people to be more and more interested in this sort of experience. And you asked me what this movie made to me, and this is something it made to me. And it also made me realize, and it's thanks to the One World Romania team, which is wonderful, that when we watch such films, we realize that for so long we somehow missed a part of French cinema and a part of French society, I think. And even now, the movies which get distribution in theaters are big spectacle movies and very, very expensive shows. And it's important to discover this, so to speak, tradition of more humanist approaches, which are not only about shiny cameras, but are more about empathy and more about a humanist approach. And for me, it was this idea and this ideal, which somehow is, I don't know, maybe shared by French cinema and French traditions of critique, that a movie can teach us how to see something, how to see a person, how to actually see it, and not just I don't know, still a subject from it. And it's interesting that in the first part we see all these stories, and you manage to give to all these unknown stories, and in the end we see the building which is being demolished. So I think that in a way your movie served to preserve this collective memory. And when people walk into these empty rooms, their eyes, I don't know, 30 years after, their eyes are making contact with ours, and it's powerful. Yeah. So that's. Thank you.
This is very true about what I wanted to do, because I was a child in a HLM when I was a little girl, and I had the feeling this was places where you can have poetic sensations, feeling, visions, and never we can watch it on movies. So when I was filming this movie, it was very important for me to show something about the beauty of this place for people living there, because they can project their beauty interior outside. So maybe it's not beautiful, but it's beautiful because people living there are beautiful. And I wanted to show how just watching by a window, this is beautiful. It was very, very important for me to catch something in this place, because when I was a little girl, I had those moments of epiphany in suburbs. So thank you very much to
And I think it's also, and maybe it goes without saying, but anyway, I still think we should say that it goes against a certain portrayal in the media of these places. It gives us different images, and I think this is also essential about such an approach.
Absolutely, I was absolutely in this mind. I wanted to show it's a place of living, not only a place of faits divers, violence, and also in media in France, very often those places, suburbs, are described only with young people, and adults are disappearing in another way to exploit them. You know, they are exploited in work, and even with the image of their neighborhood, they are disappearing. They are not. Media are talking only about violence of young people, or something like this. So it was very important for me, like a political act, to make something with it. I'm sorry, I am quite tired, and I have to wake up.
You are perfect.
Well, thank you. Thank you, guys, of all your words. You are wonderful.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to speak in another language than the language that we know, so that like that we don't hide behind words. You know what I mean?
Yes, sure.
So it's hard, but we are more
essential, direct.
Yes, exactly. We can't hide.
So you have to send me films. I don't want you to disappear. Okay.
I will take care of this.
I also have to send you a message from Radu, because he disappeared suddenly. It's because he is isolated in a village somewhere near Cluj-Napoca in Transylvania, and he was accessing internet from a card from his telephone, and now he's running to steal some internet from his neighbors. If he will not be able to, he will not be able to come with us again. But yeah, let's hope he will not be caught in this operation, because now it's not okay. He will have a lot of money to pay. I just wanted briefly to ask those of you who listened very patiently, if you want to say something or to react, maybe one or two of you. It's not necessary, but I don't know.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Some of them, yes, we can see them. Some of them probably no. But
Anna wants to speak.
Please, Anna, yes.
Dominique, thank you for your film. Especially I was touched by your self-portrait. And I want to ask you how much of you have you left off the camera when you decide not to record, and how much of you have you left off in the montage room?
Very much, because this is quite 1 year, 9 months. So I was filming quite each day, but not all the day. And I was also making quite experiments. So I wanted to try a lot of things. So I don't know, maybe I think I was filming around 80 hours. So, there is a lot outside. A lot, like, part of life, of course. sometimes I am thinking I should go back and watch all these images, but you know, who knows? I don't know if I am able to do it. But sometimes I am thinking, oh, there was this and this and this, you know. But this is always like this, a movie.
But have you been struggling with the moments when you wanted not to show something?
Oh, no, not really.
Inside you.
I don't think so. I was, I'm sorry, I don't find the word in English. I organized a screening during the editing for my son with the part where he is. And he asked me to cut one or two images where he was very emotional. And so I cut them, and that's all. No, I was not, I don't remember exactly, but I don't remember how I was filming this, and I don't want to show it. Because I think I had quite a contrary feeling. My feeling was, I am not able to film what I want to film. So, you know, so, and I think I was at this time not very conscious, I was inside my work and not in the thinking of the audience. So, and I think this is why now it's more difficult for me to make such a movie, because I am much more in the world. So I was very much inside, making the best movie I can, and the best movie was a very sincere movie. You know, I was with me like I could be with a personnage.
Character.
I want to film this, I want to film this, you know. This is crazy.
Thank you, Dominique.
Sure. And how did you decide what you would film?
What?
Improvising.
Okay.
Improvising. Well, in improvising, and then I had a feeling, you know, I was living something very strong. I wanted to make a portrait of a woman alone with his son at this particular time of the story. So I was choosing what I wanted to film with this this script, okay, the interior script. And also I wanted to film things very emotional, deep, very close to me. And in my life, petit à petit, I don't...
Little by little.
Voilà. I left what was not intimate. Meeting, you know, when I was not in a good way to film, that was because I was too far from my feeling. So, and so my life was, and well, the subject of the movie was writing by living, was being right by living. Do you see? And for example, the story of the school for my son, for me, when I was living it, I was thinking, well, this is a way to describe something of my life, crossing political subject, intimate subject, and I have to film it. You know, I was like, I was watching my life like somebody else watching it. Do you understand? Yeah. So I have to film it. And well, it was very interesting, like an experiment, to see how thematic came back in your life very oftenly. There is not one moment, but a lot of moments. So I was not able to film it one day, and au bout d'un moment, I saw that this will come back, and I will be able to film next time when it will come back. Do you understand? It was very deep as a way to see how life is something new and something coming back.
That repeats.
The same thing come back, and in the same way, something new, a lot of something new is happening. And by filming it, I was able to watch it, to understand this. So it was very deep, you know, because I need it as a filmmaker, that it will come back, and I will be able to film it next time. Something about school, something, a conflict with my son, a moment of happiness. J'en ai manqué.
Was missing.
I was missing a lot, but I catch some because it come back.
Nice.
Well, you are great, guys.
Oh.
So, can I go and have a glass of wine?
Yes.
I come back.
Oh.
Okay, come back.
So
I'm afraid I will have to go.
Yes.
Myself. So
we are going to finish soon.
And my love. Oh, my love, guys. It was so good to see everybody here. And your
see you in 2 weeks.
Little faces. Yeah, right.
At least.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Back.
So,
oh oui.
Yeah.
Ah, du vin blanc.
Now,
Cheers.
shall we do like in cinema verite movies and have some conclusions, or not? Because this was the first edition of an experiment, let's say, for us at least. As I told you in the beginning, for me it was really one of the, I don't know, it was very intense for me. It was very interesting and intense to listen all of you and to change ideas. I mean, for me, it was very useful, the experience. Would you recommend us to change something for the next editions in the format or not? To make it better? Dominique, this is for you in the first place.
It was great. Thank you very much. Well, I have the feeling it was very intense, and it's very difficult to speak about 3 movies. Very interesting, but very difficult because you know, for me it was like coming through a large part of my life. You know, very difficult, but very interesting. So I have the feeling I have left a lot of what I should have said.
Obviously.
In another way, it's very interesting to cross from a movie to another one and to try to describe a way, you know, because when you are living this way, you don't know this is a way. So after, it's very interesting to understand how you can come from a movie to another.
Or the links.
Maybe it's the links. I don't know if it's interesting for you guys, but
yes, super.
for me it was very intense, very difficult, and speaking in English.
You see that you can do it?
Well, I hope you were able to understand something.
Yeah, yeah. But we also hope that, I mean, our aim was also to introduce you, because lots of people in Romania doesn't know you, your work, and lots of other French filmmakers. So it's a good opportunity to make them want to see more of your films. We hope. We want to present some. Sorry.
No, but L'amour existe.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, I don't remember, somebody spoke about L'amour existe de Maurice Pialat. Et c'est vrai que c'est un film merveilleux.
Yes, yes, yeah. I have it. If you want it, I can give it to you. You guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next year for the next festival, we are going to invite you again, because we have so many questions. I had also some questions about how do you decide. I know that it's strange to say decide, but still decide to when you are on the way of an idea, of something thrilling you, vivid, as you say. If you are going to make more a documentary or a fiction, because what we didn't say is that you are really doing you made a lot of fictions too, but your fictions are really very documented. Sometimes even with people who are not actors, but sometimes with actors, and how at a certain point you realize that it has to be more in a documentary form or a fiction form, for instance, because it could be both sometimes. You know?
This is I am always thinking about this.
Yeah.
This is very I think you don't speak exactly about the same thing. I don't know.
Or maybe not the same way.
Fiction is more, maybe the fiction is more about what you have inside.
Mm.
For example, I have a project right now about a club of old ladies.
Mm.
And in this club, we made a kind of enquête.
Inquiry?
Yes. And but from this inquiry, a story came. And the story was very large. And maybe if we had met somebody with this large story, we could have make a fiction, documentary, but we didn't. And also the people who met were not very fond of being in a movie.
Mm.
So the story came, a fiction came. I think it depends of who you meet. I am not thinking what could I do, documentary or fiction. I am thinking I am, you know,
you are in movement, and in this movement sometimes you understand.
Yes, it's not a decision really.
No, that's why I said not decision. It's not the proper word.
Decision, but
yeah.
This is a question.
Yeah.
Very deep question, and well.
But let's stick to the invitation, and if you can accept it from now, it would be great. If not,
I accept it.
Great.
Good.
So this is a promise that you made in public after you drank a little wine, but it's not related. So it's completely lucid, the promise. So we keep to that. So next year you will be in the festival, and the main topic, we can start from here, from the difference between fiction and documentaries, and maybe also show something fictional that you made in order to illustrate this. This would also be something very good, since we are a documentary film festival, and we really like to how do you say, to question the boundaries. So
very good.
Yes, we start this year with Chantal Ackerman, because we organize a retrospective of her work, and we also screen some of her fictional films. We want to continue into this until we become a completely fictional festival dedicated. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
This is great to. I would love to come back and to meet in flesh and blood all these people.
Oh yes.
Everybody who was today here, next year we will meet at the festival. No matter if you are from Poland, France, Hawaii. Where are you from? Sebi, you are in Hawaii. Where are you?
Hello, I'm from Romania, Botoșani.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure that I will be there.
Okay. So thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you very much to all of you, to Mihaela, to Cristina, to Daniela, to Victor, to Krina, to Radu, and to all of you, and especially to Dominique for sharing this time with us, and for being so open to us.
You gave me a lot of strength.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you too.
You too.
Actually, we have a very egoistical reason for doing this. It makes us feel optimistic.
Another movie.
Sorry?
I will try to make another movie.
Great. This is great.
Yes.
So whenever you feel like joining us, and from now on, once in 2 weeks, we will organize a discussion like this online. So we invite you all. We will have Rose McKelvey, Claire Simon, Claire Atherton. So a lot of French people. This is not related to Vanina being French, of course. I always say that. No, but I'm not kidding. It's a really great cinema.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dominique.